President Trump sends B-2 bombers, bunker busters, to obliterate the Iran nuclear program. Is it as successful as President Trump has said? And what's next? What now? Should we be worried about a domestic terror attack from the Iranians the Biden administration let in the border? Well, one thing is for certain. Members of the mainstream media, like Margaret Brennan at Face the Nation, she's got her eye firmly fixed on the real enemy, the Trump administration. She tried again, and Rubio smacked her down. You're going to see every single second of that, and it's glorious. Democrats can't quite figure out how to respond, so of course they're lining up against the Trump administration and against something that 80% of the American people were fully in support of. It's an amazing thing to behold, and we're going to give you every detail coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Thank you for being a part of our show that we do here every single day at noon, live and after the fact. If you're just joining us, if you're just checking us out because you subscribed over the weekend because we had some huge viewership of last Friday's show, please subscribe to our show. Get yourself an alert there. So every time we go live, you'll be able to join us because our live chat is lit, as the kids like to say. And by the way, we've been looking at the numbers. Like a huge majority of people who watch this show aren't actually subscribers. And that's cool. We love it. But it's just that one extra little step to subscribe. Doesn't cost you a dang thing. We appreciate your support and all of your super chats that we'll get during the show. Stick around afterwards. That's when we interact with the super chats after we get through our program. Thank you so much. We're days away from what's been dubbed the Rio Reset. It may be the greatest threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in over 8 decades. On July 6th, BRICS nations, Russia, China, India, Iran might not show up now, just FYI. And a whole lot more. They're expected to unveil their plans to circumvent the U.S. dollar, possibly cratering its value. They've already been laying the groundwork because their central banks have been methodically divesting from the dollar and U.S. bonds in favor of gold. So how can you protect your IRA or 401k from the potential fallout from this meeting? Diversify with gold from Birch Gold Group. Historically, gold can be a safe haven in times of uncertainty, which is right now. Get a free info kit on tax-sheltered gold IRAs by texting the word Larry to 989898. That's my name, Larry, L-A-R-R-Y. July 6th is going to be a major meeting among those nations that control 1/3 of the world's GDP. Arm yourself with information to diversify your retirement savings. Text Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, to 989898. Claim your free info kit from Birch Gold. Well, of course, after the successful bombing run of our amazing pilots and their B-2 bombers from Missouri, flying 36 hours round trip with those bunker busters stealthily, no one saw it coming, no one saw it happening. Unbelievable success story. They're going to make a movie out of this. It's that cool. After that, of course, the mainstream legacy corporate media in the United States had to stand firm, draw a line in the sand, and face their enemy head on. We can't let the Trump administration get away with this. People feel good about it, and they successfully achieved something that every president since Jimmy Carter's been attempting to do: neutralize the terrorist state, the theocracy that is the Islamic Republic of Iran. Donald Trump did that? Oh, not on my watch, says Margaret Brennan at Face the Nation. Folks, she did it again. She got lined up this time with, I think, her favorite adversary, Marco Rubio. And by favorite, I mean Secretary of State Marco Rubio cannot wait to sit in that chair and face off with Margaret Brennan because he knows that his stock is going to go way up with the American people because she's so bad. And he brought his A game. Take a look.
So far, it does not appear that Iran has yet retaliated against the United States. What intelligence do you have at this point about their capabilities to respond, the intent of their proxies? Is there any kind of command and control structure left to activate them?
Yeah, well, we'll see what Iran decides to do. I think they should choose the route of peace. We've done everything. We have bent over backwards okay, to create a deal with these people. Steve Witkoff has traveled the world extensively, met with them, well, not even met with them, met through the Omanis with them and discussed back and forth. We even put an offer to them that they wanted elements of it in writing, and we offered it to them. Very generous offer, by the way. We've done it, and we're prepared right now. If they call right now and say, we want to meet, let's talk about this, we're prepared to do that. The president's made that clear from the very beginning. His preference is to deal with this issue diplomatically. But he also told them we had 60 days to make progress or something else was going to happen. And I think they thought they were dealing with a different kind of leader, like the kinds of leaders they've been playing games with for the last 30 or 40 years. And they found out that's not the case. So this mission was a very precise mission. It had 3 objectives, 3 nuclear sites. It was not an attack on Iran. It was not an attack on the Iranian people. This wasn't a regime change move. This was designed to degrade and or destroy 3 nuclear sites related to their nuclear weaponization ambitions, and that was delivered on yesterday. What happens next will now depend on what Iran chooses to do next. If they choose the path of diplomacy, we're ready. We can do a deal that's good for them, the Iranian people, and good for the world. Yeah. If they choose another route, then there'll be consequences for that.
First of all, again, great, sober, deliberate, well-spoken Marco Rubio, your Secretary of State and your National Security Advisor, amongst other jobs that he's got right now. No notes, no hemming and hawing, no, looking at the index card, no talking points, really. I mean, this is just a man having a conversation who has command of the issues and feels confident with his administration, the Trump administration's moves this year. And you heard Margaret Brennan. First of all, the question, tell me about the intelligence you have about their capabilities. I'm not going to tell you. Why do these teleprompter readers think that state secrets are going to get divulged in an interview? Just moronic waste of our time by asking that question. It's not informing the American people, whatever. But you heard her trying to get in there. Okay, stop sounding competent. Stop sounding forceful and on top of the issue. Let me in. Let me hammer you. So she tries to hammer.
Let me follow up on a phrase you just word: weaponization ambitions. Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I see that question being asked in the media. That's an irrelevant question.
No, that is the key point in U.S. intelligence assessment. You know that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's not.
The political decision had not been made.
I know that better than you know that, and I know that that's not the case.
But I'm asking you whether the order was given.
And the people who say that, it doesn't matter if the order was given. They have everything they need to build nuclear weapons. Why would you bury things in a mountain 300 feet under the ground?
Right.
Why would you bury why do they have 60% enriched uranium? You don't need 60% enriched uranium. The only countries in the world that have uranium at 60% are countries that have nuclear weapons, because they can quickly make it 90. They have all the elements. They have. Why do they have a space program? Is Iran going to go to the moon? No, they're trying to build an ICBM.
No, but that's a question. That's a question of intent. And in the intelligence assessment that it was that Iran wanted to be a threshold state and use this leverage. I'm talking about the public March assessment, and that's why I was asking you if you know something more from March.
But that's also an inaccurate representation of it. That's an accurate representation of it. That's not how intelligence is read. That's not how intelligence is used. Here's what the whole world knows. Forget about intelligence. What the IAEA knows. They are enriching uranium well beyond anything you need for a civil nuclear program. So why would you enrich uranium at 60%? Right. If you don't intend to one day use it to take it to 90 and build a weapon? Right. Why are you developing ICBMs? Why do you have 8,000 short-range missiles and 2,000 to 3,000 long mid-range missiles that you continue to develop? Why do you do all these things? They have everything they need for a nuclear weapon. They have the delivery mechanisms. They have the enrichment capability. They have the highly enriched uranium that is stored. Yes. That's all we need to see.
Right. Well,
especially in the hands of a regime that's already involved in terrorism and proxies and all kinds of things around. They are the source of all
yes, and no one's disputing that. I'm not doing that here. And they were censured at the IAEA for that enrichment and for violating their non-proliferation agreements. I was simply asking if we had intelligence that there was an order to weaponize, because you said weaponization ambitions.
Well, we have intelligence that they have everything they need to build a nuclear weapon, and that's more than enough.
Yeah, honestly, that was incoherent from Margaret Brennan, and whenever she is left sputtering like that and trying to, it's like her face is malfunctioning, right? And she's stuttering and sputtering and trying to get in, and I don't understand how CBS News thinks that this makes them look strong or competent or in some way in command of the issues. Meanwhile, Rubio, listen, viewers of this program know the truth about the March assessment. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, provided it under oath in Congress. Everyone's playing this 17-second clip of her saying that the Iranian regime did not have a program in place to build nuclear weapons. And then immediately, this is what gets cut off from everybody's social media feed when they show that clip and say, aha, see, Tulsi Gabbard herself said. Then the very next thing out of her mouth is they are stockpiling enriched uranium well beyond any commercial use of uranium that anyone could ever imagine. They're stockpiling it, and the only reason to do so is to utilize it for nuclear weapons. In other words, they've got all the parts laid out on the floor like you just opened up the box from IKEA, and you got to put the crib together before your wife goes into labor, and you got your Allen wrench, and it's like, all right, you put it out on the floor in the nursery. You finish painting the nursery. The baby's coming. It's like, okay, you listen, when we get closer to the due date, then I'll put together the crib, because I hate these IKEA things, and it's hard to follow the instructions, and it's going to screw up my lower back anyway, and God knows the wife's not going to help me because she's gigantic at this point. I'll wait until we're a couple of weeks, and then I'll put together the crib. That's where they were in Iran. They had all the components laid out on the floor. All they got to do is put them together. And Rubio laid it out there without the colorful analogy of the IKEA crib. But it was brilliant. And I love what they got a space program. What, Iran's going to the moon? No. They want to be able to launch a rocket into the upper atmosphere to go across the ocean. Who do you think they're trying to hit? Maybe the country they've called the Great Satan for the last 50 years. But Margaret Brennan wasn't done. I mean, she was absolutely focused on picking a fight with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And, I was waiting for an old school Republican, fresh off the country club or a brunch with Buffy at the Ninth Hole Club, to show up for this meeting, this interview, and just sort of, stammer a bit and apologize for being conservative and apologize for having a robust American military, and just say, I know, Margaret, you're right. I really want the New York Times editorial page and the United Nations to be nice to me. So we're going to do better next time. I was waiting for that Republican to show up, but that Republican ain't in power anymore. It's these guys. And boy, has Rubio learned.
Problem is that everything they're demanding has nothing to do with a peaceful program. They are all the things you would want if you want to retain the option of one day weaponizing the program.
Okay.
Which has been their clear intent. To me, that's indisputable. I followed this issue for 15 years, including the intelligence on it for 15 years. Okay, I have followed it. And the intelligence, these are assessments, and sometimes they've been wrong. I've seen them revised multiple times. These guys want a nuclear weapon one day.
Okay, to that point.
And it isn't going to happen. Not while Donald Trump is president.
Understood. You've said this is not about regime change, but you were describing a regime that you have said for decades, for upwards of 40 years, has chanted death to America, has done all the things you just described. Isn't a diplomatic deal with them a lifeline? Aren't you offering to negotiate with the same people you're saying did all these things? So therefore, are you actually looking for regime change?
Are you following this line of questioning? First, she's getting aggressive on him, saying, well, yeah, why did you bomb them? We didn't know that they were on the verge of weaponization. There was no reason to bomb them. And now her argument is, well, why are you offering diplomacy to them? No reason to give diplomacy. You literally cannot win. It's like she doesn't care about the facts. She doesn't care about logic. She doesn't care about the truth. She only cares about scoring points against Rubio, which is fine, but you better score one or two. Otherwise, you will be the pathetic loser that you continue to be. I cannot believe she still has this job. It's amazing to me.
Well, that misses the point. I don't like that they chant those things, but one thing is that they chant those things. Another thing is that they chant those things and they have terror proxies are all over the world, and they have long-range missiles that can reach the United States one day, and they have the potential to be one step away from a nuclear weapon. Yeah, well, one day could be tomorrow, could be a week from now, could be a month from now. All it takes is the flip of a switch. By the way, they're not going to broadcast that to the world. By the time we figure out that they're doing it, you have all the pieces in place, okay? It's like you have a gun here and the ammunition. It only takes 1 second. We have other targets that we could hit, but we achieved our objective. The primary targets we were interested in are the ones that were struck tonight in devastating fashion. The ones that were struck, I guess, tonight over there, their time, in devastating fashion, and we've achieved that objective. There are no planned military operations right now against Iran unless they mess around and they attack American or American interests. Then they're going to have a problem. And I'm not going to broadcast what those problems are.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, know this. The United States flew halfway around the world, right into the heart of Iran, over their most sensitive locations. These things got rocked. And then we left. And we were out of their airspace. We were over the ocean before they figured out what had happened. And there are plenty of other targets. We don't want to do that. That's not our preference. We want peace deals with them. And that's up to them to decide.
Oh, that was so brilliantly done.
The problem,
not only brilliantly done in terms of communicating to Iran, we'll be coming for you, and you won't know when we're coming, so you better make a deal now or it's over. But also, you know who's watching this? China. You know who's watching this? Russia, North Korea. This operation showed the entire world what they should have already known, but now there's no doubt. No one can do what we do militarily. Nobody can achieve what was just achieved. You know, as a kid, one of my earliest memories as a kid in terms of like news events and things going on was the Iranian hostage crisis. In fact, I remember vividly the day I showed up at school and people were learning the news about the Jimmy Carter failed rescue attempt that left members of the Delta Force dead in the deserts outside of Iran. And it's just, that kind of failure you grow up with. You grow up with knowing that Iran is this existential threat. And you know that our military at that time, 1979, was utilized in such a poor way, without correct direction, without correct budget, without correct training. Frankly, sadly, the morale's so low after the Vietnam War. And now you get to this point in your life. What an incredible turnaround and what an incredible military dominance that was just displayed. And our adversaries around the world, they saw every second of this play out. And they're terrified. All right, more of Marco Rubio, your Secretary of State, specifically on this issue of regime change, because part of the theme here is what now? What now?
Objective here is very straightforward. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They're not even going to get close to a nuclear weapon. They're not even going to be in the neighborhood of a nuclear weapon because these people are dangerous. This is a radical Shia clerics who run that country,
Yes.
and they are the source of all instability in the region, all of it. Without Iran and this regime, there is no Hamas, there is no Hezbollah. Well, because we don't want them to have a nuclear weapon.
Okay,
but that's the core objective. But I'm going through the things they've done because that's why they can't have a nuclear weapon. Okay, they sponsor Shias.
Yeah,
they sponsor these Shia militias, Hamas, Hezbollah, all these other terrorist groups. These people are never going to get anywhere close to a nuclear weapon.
So the Americans for the Americans at home who are going, are we at war? I'm trying to suss out some of the facts here. So why would Iran agree to any peace deal if the United States has already pulled out of one that they had, as President Trump did in 2018, and now has launched 2 surprise attacks? Both Israel and the United States have done so. There is such a massive trust deficit there. How could you possibly come
but the trust deficit started with Iran.
Did you hear that? You'll hear the answer in a second, but you heard that, right? Why would Iran enter a peace deal with America? They can't trust you. This is an American media company. She's protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And, between this and the Washington Post literally publishing a map of American bases in the region saying, hey, this is what Iran might do next if they wanted to go after some of our military bases. Listen, I understand Iran probably already knew where our military bases were, but for the Washington Post to do that, hey, Margaret, Washington Post, you guys, if you don't want us to call you the enemy of the American people, maybe stop doing things and saying things that make you seem like you're the enemy of the American people. I mean, you're literally saying, she literally just said something that our enemy would say. Why should Iran trust you? Unbelievable. All right. Here's Rubio's answer.
I know.
Well, the trust deficit, the ones that shouldn't be trusted are the Iranians because they're the ones that sponsor terrorism. Did they forewarn us before they blew up the embassy in Lebanon and killed over 200 American servicemen? Did they forewarn us before they built IEDs and blew the legs and arms off of American servicemen in Iraq? I mean, these are the people that are doing this forever. They're the ones that no one should trust. They're the ones that have lied about their nuclear program.
But
they're the ones that have hidden things from the international organisms.
But that sounds like we're headed towards regime change, or the desire to get these people out of power.
No.
Are you?
No. A serious foreign policy is one that's focused on identifying what our national interest is. You don't have to like the regime. There are a lot of regimes around the world that we don't like. Okay, but in this particular case, what we are focused on is not the changing of the regime. Okay, that's up to the Iranian people if they want to do that, but that's not what we're focused on. Our national interest is about one thing, and that is Iran not getting anywhere near the capability to weaponize and have nuclear weapons. They're not going to get anywhere near that capability. The president has made that clear from day one. Our preference for solving that problem, that very specific problem, is through diplomacy. We've said that. We've given it every opportunity. They played games. They tried delay tactics. They're trying delay tactics now on the Europeans because of the snapback provisions.
When did
you talk about the JCPOA? That was a crazy deal.
All right. That's enough of poor Margaret did not do any better toward the end of that. It doesn't matter. You've seen enough. You see that Marco Rubio is in command of this and really becoming a man in full. Margaret Brennan and CBS News weren't the only ones who were lamenting the success of our American military and lamenting the fact that over 80% of the American people were happy that the nuclear program in Iran was taking care of, something the presidents had been hoping to take care of for decades. Although I'm not so sure Biden and Obama really wanted that to happen. Otherwise, why would they have given them a deal that actually allowed them to enrich uranium? And don't forget the pallets of cash that was used to finance terrorist attacks against Americans and Israelis. But ABC News, they were very, very concerned over there at ABC News about so many issues and so many problems, especially the concern that Donald Trump is now leading us into a forever war, that this is needless, that we're going to have troops on the ground, that it's regime change, that it's nation building, and he's violating his promise when he ran for office. Of course, none of that is true, but it didn't stop ABC News.
But this is a fairly risky move for this president, though tonight he says it's been a victory. He thanked U.S. forces who were involved, and he said if Iran does not end the wars and seek peace, tragedy for Iran will be even greater than what we've seen in the last 24 hours.
David, it is an extremely risky move, and no one knows really where this goes from here. Look, the president, we know, has long warned that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon, but he also long was pushing for those negotiations. As you mentioned, it was just 2 days ago that the president announced, after yet another meeting in the Situation Room, that he was going to give himself this 2-week deadline within which to make this decision whether or not to strike Iran, in part because he thought there was, quote, a substantial chance of negotiations, that they would be able to get Iran back to the table. It is not clear still, even after hearing from the president just now, what changed his mind, what led him to believe there was no time left to waste, that the U.S. had to go ahead and get deeply involved in this conflict in a way that the president has also really promised the American people he would not. He campaigned on a promise to be a peacemaker and a unifier, to keep America out of these kinds of conflicts. And what's clear tonight is that the president is very much leaving open the door that there will be more of this. While he is hailing the strikes tonight as a huge success, he is also not ruling out additional military action, saying that there are many targets left, that they will act with precision, speed, and skill if needed. How all of this will ultimately end Iran's nuclear program is a huge question. And of course, David, Iran has promised a severe response if the U.S. were to be directly involved, as we now are.
All right. So thank you, Newsbusters, for the clip. Let me just unpack a little bit of this. First of all, President Trump has always said that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but he also promised that he wouldn't lead us into a war. We're not quite sure how to square these two things. What are you talking about? Honestly, they really should watch the news now and again before they report it to you. It doesn't take that much to figure this out. Iran can have a nuclear weapon, and we want to be able to solve this peacefully at the negotiating table. But guess what? If we don't believe you're negotiating in good faith, if we think you're lying to us, if you blow past deadlines and you're not interested in actually having a real conversation about ending the enrichment of uranium, and you insist on continuing to enrich uranium, then there really isn't anything more to discuss. We're going to stop you. There you go. I don't have an advanced degree like you, lady, but I figured it out. It's pretty common sense, actually. Oh, but President Trump also promised that he wouldn't get us into forever wars. needless excursions with nation building. And so now how do you resolve that? Here he was. He promised everyone he wouldn't do nation building and forever wars, but now he sent the B-2 bombers to blow up the nuclear capabilities of Iran. I mean, this is just hypocritical. He's lying. He lied. We caught him in a lie when he was campaigning. Really? Because here's President Trump's track record. Yeah, he does want to be a peacemaker. He doesn't want to get into wars. In fact, he's the first president in modern history that didn't engage in a full-scale war in decades and get America stuck in long-term engagements. But that doesn't mean you don't use the military when you absolutely need to use the military. He drops the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. There was no larger war. And all of the incursions against, you remember the Taliban when Trump first became president was increasing their attacks on the American military. He dropped that Moab. Stopped. Trump strikes Syrian chemical weapons. Did something that Obama wouldn't do. Remember, Obama drew a red line in the sand. If they start using chemical weapons, that's a red line. Syria starts using chemical weapons. Obama just shrugs and goes back to watching ESPN. Trump gets in there, bombs the chemical weapons plants. No more. Done. Did that mean a forever war? Did that mean boots on the ground? Did that mean nation building? No. Trump promised to take care of ISIS, something that had festered and taken over the entire Levant region of the Middle East under Barack Obama, when Barack Obama joked and, oh, ISIS, they're the JV team. And the next thing you know, ISIS is controlling all of Iraq and most of Syria. Trump gets in there in less than a year. ISIS is wiped off the map. Did that mean boots on the ground? Did that mean a larger footprint? No. In fact, Trump was the one that oversaw withdrawing completely from Iraq. And then, of course, Trump liquefied Soleimani, the head of the Iranian Republican Guard, their elite, military people, who was responsible for killing and maiming so many American soldiers and Marines and sailors in Iraq during the Iraq War. He saw that target, absolutely turned him into a pile of dust on the sidewalk. That didn't mean a larger war. Everyone said it would. Oh, here we go. It's World War III now. That's it. It's over. Nope. You use the military when you need to use the military to complete an objective, and that's it. One and done. Maybe, just maybe, we should trust President Trump on this. And maybe the viewers of ABC News would be better informed if their reporters and their anchors actually had some good, better at least, working knowledge of recent history. I mean, it's not like it was a long time ago. It was only over the course of the last 8 years that these things transpired, but they lack any context and any wisdom about who this man is and what he's done as president already. They confuse him with the other men who have run and occupied that White House, people who do get us stuck in long-term wars. That's not Trump. Not yet. So what's next? Well, we don't know, and we don't pretend to know. But if you look at history and you look at what's been done before under this president, what's next is nothing. We did our job. It's done. But if you want to FA a little more, you will FO a whole lot more. Everything you just saw is why I wrote my book, Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Corporate Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. And they are absolutely irrelevant, but they keep trying, and that's why we keep talking about him here. If you like my coverage of the media, you'll love my book. It covers the entire 2024 presidential election, the lies about Biden to help him and cover up his illness, the lies about Kamala Harris, and the lies about Donald Trump. Buy my book. It's available at Amazon on all formats, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. Buy it today. Thanks. Now that the military has successfully eliminated the Iranian threat of... Let me try that one more time. Sorry. Now that our great U.S. military has eliminated Iran's capabilities to build a nuclear weapon, at least for the near term, the next question is, what will Iran do to retaliate? And there are grave concerns that they might be able to attack us right here in the homeland within the contiguous 48 because they could very well be living in our neighborhoods thanks to President Biden's open border policy. How bad is it? Well, let's take a look at this report from Fox News.
All right, welcome back. Want to reset, talk about where we are now and where we might be going next when it comes to Operation Midnight Hammer and the situation in Iran. So taking a look once again to recap what we did over the weekend. The U.S. attacking 3 separate Iranian nuclear sites. Isfahan, where they got a bunch of underground tunnels with the enriched uranium, Natanz, and then the big one at Fordo. That is where we used 12 different bunker busters, waiting for damage assessments from those. But the question is, what, if any, responses are going to be from the Iranians next? Keep in mind, we've got about 40,000 U.S. military personnel sprinkled throughout bases all within the Middle East, going from Turkey all the way down to Qatar and the UAE. Remember, back in 2020, it was Al Assad Air Base in Iraq, where the Iranians decided to shoot ballistic missiles in response to the strike against Soleimani. Then down here in Qatar, we've got Al Udeid Air Base. That is our biggest base in all of the Middle East. That's where CENTCOM also has some of their headquarters. The question also, what's going to happen here on U.S. soil? The potential threat of Iranian sleeper cells. We talked about the open border the last 4 years. Take a look at this data. CBP sources telling Fox News from 2021 to 2024 under the Biden administration, just over 1,500 Iranians were caught by Border Patrol crossing the southern border illegally. Of that, almost half of them, 729, were released into the U.S. That is 48%. That also does not account for the more than 2 million known gotaways who slipped across the southern border during that time.
I hope you soberly looked at those numbers, because it's remarkable. 1,500 that they know of crossed the border during the Biden administration, and they released half of them. Because it makes perfect sense that Iranians would be crossing our Mexican border to come into the country. And why not just let them stay here, right? I mean, what kind of damage could they do? Also, as Maloosian just said, Bill Maloosian of Fox News, there were at least 2 million, is estimated, they crossed our border without us actually knowing who they are or where they came from. The odds are that a good percentage of those 2 million also came from Iran. Let's face it, if you're a terrorist and you've been trained to be part of a sleeper cell here in America and put together a terror plot against Americans here in our homeland, and you're crossing our southern border illegally, you're probably going to great pains not to be detected, not to be discovered. I mean, so I'm worried about the 700 plus who have been released into the country by the negligent Biden administration, but I'm just as worried, if not more, about the ones we don't know about. Caroline Levitt raised that issue on ABC News yesterday.
The American people continue to be safe under this president and this administration that has done more to secure our homeland than any administration in history. The previous administration allowed 20 million illegal aliens into our country. This administration is focused on the largest mass deportation of those illegal criminals, many of them who do come from countries in the Middle East. Many of those were known terrorists, and this administration is detaining and deporting them every day to protect our homeland and protect the American public. That is always the president's number one priority and goal. And just to be clear, yes, this strike on Saturday did make our homeland safer because it took away Iran's ability to create a nuclear bomb. This is a regime that threatens death to America and death to Israel, and they no longer have the capability to build this nuclear weapon and threaten the world. So not just the United States, it's a safer place, but also the entire globe.
Yeah. And again, we need to keep this in mind that the last administration let over 20 million people into this country illegally, and we have no idea who they are, where they are, or where they came from. And I know people will be like, oh, well, they're just refugees from Iran, right? They're just seeking asylum here. And that could be. They're poor. They're desperate. They're just looking for a better life. How the hell did they afford flying from Iran to Mexico? Or wherever it is they flew to before they made their way to our southern border? You ever ask yourself that? I mean, how poor and destitute and needing a better life economically would they be if they were able to afford that trip? And why America? I mean, Europe is closer, isn't it? You should be able to travel shorter distances and still set yourself up for asylum somewhere in Western Europe instead. But they had to come to America. They had to come to Mexico and cross illegally across our southern border. That should give everybody pause. And if you're concerned about it, I hope you blame the right people. That would be your last president. Her board and his border czar, Kamala Harris. Tom Homan is our new border czar, and he raised this specifically yesterday with Maria on Fox News.
Can you assess that issue, particularly how many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol. And you compare that to the Trump administration, zero. Right, zero releases. And right now, because of President Trump's leadership, we have the most secure border in my lifetime, most secure border in the history of this nation. So we have a secure border. That was President Trump's big win on securing this nation. So we're not releasing people in this country. Special interest aliens aren't crossing that border undetected. But under Joe Biden, we had over 10 million people cross that border. But my biggest concern from day one, beyond the fentanyl, beyond the sex trafficking women and children, were the 2 million known gotaways. Over 2 million people crossed that border. We don't know who they are, where they came from, because they got away, because Border Patrol is so overwhelmed with the humanitarian crisis that Biden created that over 2 million people crossed the border and got away. That is my biggest concern, and that's what created the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen.
Listen, if that's Tom Homan's biggest concern, and that's my biggest concern, it should be your biggest concern too. As everybody starts to freak out now that there may be some retaliation from Iran, sadly, it appears that if there is a retaliation, it might be in our own backyard, at our own local mall or movie theater or other soft target. That's the bigger concern. And of course, you've got your Biden administration to blame for that. Hopefully, our Homeland Security will be able to get on top of it ahead of time. But what's really remarkable is that the people who are wringing their hands and screaming, you know, we should have never done this to Iran because now there's going to be a terror attack against Americans. Well, if Iran is capable of a terror attack against Americans, which clearly they are because they've been doing it for, 50 years, then that's just another reason why they should never get a nuclear weapon. And I don't see anybody coming up with a real solution as to how you keep them from getting a nuclear weapon other than doing exactly what was just done. But the concern is real. So what are the details here? Bill Maloogian, once again, who covers the beat of the border and Homeland Security and immigration better than anyone in the corporate media. He's at Fox News. He got the breakdown from CBP. Let's take a look at it together because he shared it on social media. So his CBP source says there were 1,504 Iranian nationals that were caught crossing the border illegally. That's during the Biden administration from fiscal year 21 through 24. Now, 729 of them were released into the United States. And I want to be clear. Those could be Iranians who were being persecuted by the Iranian government, who yearned for freedom over all of these decades, who were being persecuted for religious purposes or political purposes. They may be at odds with the Ayatollahs. They may be at odds with the regime over there. And they did come here seeking asylum. Again, that could be the case. I don't know. I know that the Iranian people, many of the people in Iran, hate their government, hate their regime. Many of them still remember 47 years ago when their society was very, very different. So that could be the case here. That's also not the gravest concern. Here's the year-by-year breakdown of the Iranian nationals that were caught by Border Patrol. In fiscal year 21, 48 were caught, 22, 197. But look what happens when word gets out. Hey, guys, they're not stopping anyone at the southern border. You go to fiscal year 23, it jumps more than double to 462. And then in fiscal year 24, which, by the way, toward the end of it, Biden pretended like he cared because he and eventually his vice president was running for office. But it almost doubled in fiscal year 24 as well, up to 797 who were stopped. Now, the year-by-year breakdown of the Iranians who were released. Again, look at the exponential growth here. 12 in fiscal year 21, 40 in 22, 229 in 23, 448 in 24. Here's some more information. According, again, Maloogian's source in Border Patrol. It's unclear how many of these Iranians were on the terror watch list. Wait a minute. Sorry. It's unclear how many were on the terror watch list. I would think if one of them were on the terror watch list, they wouldn't be released. Right? It's unclear how many of these Iranians were on the terror watch list, as the Biden administration repeatedly denied my FOIA requests and appeals for the data, citing the privacy concerns of the people on the list and minimal public interest in disclosing the data. Yeah, there's no public interest in disclosing how many people on the terror watch list from Iran were just released to roam free in America. Where's the public interest in that? There's no public interest in the American people being informed about what a lousy president Joe Biden was and how treasonous he was in his open border policy, allowing our enemies to walk among us. No public interest in that. Privacy concerns. If you're on the terror watch list, we're very concerned about your privacy. You should be able to download as much internet porn as possible. There were over 2 million known recorded gotaways at the border during the Biden administration. So 2 million people got away that they know about. In other words, they saw them, they couldn't catch them, they got overwhelmed, they just plowed through, or maybe they evaded them, but at least they, then they noted, okay, there were 8 people in that van and they got away from us. The 2 million gotaways are people that they know about. They have no idea how many people surreptitiously crossed the border, made their way into the country, and just disappeared into the ether. The gotaways, by the way, also include, I believe, overstays of student visas or tourist visas, although I don't know how many people get a tourist visa from Tehran to come into the United States of America. 2 million known recorded gotaways at the border during the Biden administration. Because they were never caught, there's no way of knowing where they're from. All Iranians are special interest aliens due to national security concerns, and they're supposed to receive enhanced vetting by DHS. Almost half of the Iranians encountered by the Border Patrol were released into the United States, as we mentioned, but that's the breakdown on the details there by Bill Maloogian. You'll remember in September of last year, just about 2 months before the presidential election, J.D. Vance, running at the time as the Ohio senator and the vice presidential candidate with Donald Trump, he appeared on the All In podcast and specifically spoke about this concern.
There's a lot of videos. Elon's gone down there. Bobby Kennedy's gone down there. You've gone down there.
Sure.
And the interdictions are not necessarily coming from countries in Central and South America anymore. They're coming from places in, near Asia, and a lot of places that you wouldn't normally think people coming from, Middle East, etc. From a national security perspective, what do we think is happening?
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
Yeah. So, part of the reason it's happening is
it's not Hondurans necessarily.
Right. No, that's right. No,
Iranians.
It's Iranians. Yeah. It's people from all over Asia, Africa, Europe. I mean, look, if you look at this, that is the open door, right? So if you want to come to this country, that is the open door, and God knows why some of them want to be here. I mean, given what's going on in the Middle East, I do worry about military-age males from Iran coming into this country through the American southern border. But I actually asked a Border Patrol agent about this on one of my visits, and great guy, was actually kind of heartbroken because he signed up to protect his country, and he's a relatively recent immigrant. I could tell that by his accent. This guy's like very nervous and very heartbroken about the fact that he can't do his job. And he told me this story, and I feel like an idiot in hindsight, because he's like, we have a guy who came in here. Well, I asked the guy, like, why do you think this guy's Iranian? And he said, well, because he came through and he said that he was Mexican. And I was like, well, couldn't he have been Mexican? And he said, well, he didn't speak Spanish. It's like, oh, that's a tell.
Yeah,
guy comes from Mexico, legal alien, doesn't speak Spanish. That's probably a pretty significant tell. But it's happening because this is what Kamala Harris has done. She's created this massive gap in our national security, and people are taking advantage of it.
There you go, and that's where we are. That's where we are. So whenever anybody sits in front of you and tells you one way or the other what the threat is, and whether there's a possibility for a domestic terror attack, and whether there are sleeper cells, and whether the people in the country, the bottom line is whether they work for the Department of Homeland Security, whether they work for the White House, whether they work for the media, whether they work on Capitol Hill or wherever, or law enforcement, the only honest question is they don't know. They really don't know, because of the chaos that we had, the controlled, planned, coordinated, and celebrated chaos of our southern border. We literally do not know how many people are in this country from Iran who are affiliated with Iran. We know that they got a whole lot of money from the Biden administration and from the Obama administration. We know that for decades they've been planning terror attacks all through the world. We know that they've got affiliations with Hezbollah and with the Houthis and with Hamas. They had affiliations with Cuba and Venezuela in our hemisphere. We know all of those things. And, you know, these are the reasons why a nation secures its border. This is a reason why a nation makes it a priority to regulate how many people can come into their country, how they come into your country, how they're documented coming into your country, and tracking them. And by the way, even more importantly, turning a ton of people away, saying, no, you cannot come into our country. That's why countries have borders. And that's why countries have border policies. And for the last 4 years, our border policy was open the doors wide and figure out how to get as many people in here as quickly as possible. Because the policy had nothing to do with our nation's security. It had to do with politics. It's one of the reasons why this president won his election, and now he's cleaning up the mess. And you may argue that we should have never engaged in this military strike because the ramification, the repercussion, the retaliation may be a domestic terror attack. And God forbid, I hope you're wrong. But it could happen. The only thing I can tell you is that's part of the conversation immediately following this strike in the media by very smart people. And that tells me that the people who are in charge of keeping us safe, they're fully aware of it too. And they're going to do whatever they can. Hey, become a member of Town Hall VIP. It's really easy to do. You just go to townhallvip.com. And when you check out, use my name, Larry, you'll get 50% off your membership. And that membership is going to get you an ad-free experience on all the Town Hall sites. That's townhall.com, hotair.com, redstate.com, twitchy.com, pjmedia.com, and bearingarms.com. Can I drop the .com at this point? Everybody knows how to get to a website. Just put .com at the end. Anyway, you'll get your ad-free experience. You'll also get exclusive VIP member-only content, including columns, news articles, podcasts, live streams, interactions with all your favorite Town Hall personalities. And finally, your support as a Town Hall VIP member keeps our journalism going. All the commentary, all our investigative reports, and all of the original content that we create. Check it out. It's townhallvip.com. Use code Larry for 50% off. Democrats are at a loss. They don't know exactly what to do here. They sat by and watched Barack Obama engage in multiple military attacks and use of our military for bombing raids and missile raids and various things. And they never said a word. They applauded it. They celebrated it. And of course, Republicans never really opposed it either, because the fact of the matter is the commander-in-chief has a lot of leeway. Oh, I started this wrong. Can I do this again? I'm sorry. Hakeem Jeffries is really upset that he didn't know about the military strike against the Iranian nuclear facilities. A funny thing, though, turns out Hakeem Jeffries doesn't know because he just didn't pick up the phone when Trump called him to tell him. Yeah, I'm not kidding. We'll get to that in just a moment. But writ large, Democrats are sort of lost in the woods here. They don't know how to react. See, all they've known for the last 10 years is everything Trump does is bad, wrong, horrible, disgusting, despicable. So you've got to oppose everything that Trump does. And in doing so, well, you've lost your ability to think and reason and actually, well, sort of recognize what might be a good policy, even if it comes from the big bad orange Hitler. Here's Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, now just a backbencher from San Francisco, who's really upset because Trump ignored the Constitution, she claims. Tonight, the president ignored the Constitution for the children. All right, I'll stop. By unilaterally engaging our military without congressional authorization, I join my colleagues in demanding answers from the administration on this operation, which endangers American lives and risks further escalation and dangerous destabilization of the region. Yeah, because we'd prefer a stable region in the Middle East where Iran is this close from getting a nuclear weapon, because nothing says stability like the mad mullahs of the theocracy in Iran, a terrorist state, having a nuclear weapon. The problem is Nancy Pelosi is super duper confused because she's a little bit at odds with this woman. This would be Nancy Pelosi from 14 years ago.
So, Madam Speaker, or Madam Leader, you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you all very much.
There you go. So let's just get this straight. Barack Obama, President of the United States, with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, authorized bombing runs against Libya, even though Libya was not developing nuclear weapons. And frankly, Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator of Libya for many decades, who was not the best guy in the world, but toward the end there was actually starting to work with the Bush administration because he was afraid of the jihadis too. Muammar Gaddafi is like, geez, these jihadis are crazy. Look at what Al-Qaeda did to America. Man, I don't want them doing that to me. Okay, I'll be your friend now. I'll help you find some jihadis. Obama gets in there. They do bombing runs for months, by the way, against Libya. Nancy Pelosi at the time says the president does not need authorization. Donald Trump does one strike against a known terrorist state who has killed Americans for decades, and it was specifically targeted at their nuclear facilities, and now she's demanding that the Trump administration give them answers because he ignored the Constitution. That's leadership. You see, you have to understand, Democrats didn't know what to do. They were caught so flat-footed because who could have seen this coming? Wait a second, we all saw this coming. We all knew this was going to happen. We've been talking about it for weeks now. And yet they still didn't have a planned, prepared, understandable, cohesive political response. Even if that political response was, listen, we would have liked to have been clued in on this, but we're really happy. Our military is great. They did a great job, and we'd like to have more information from the Trump administration, but it's a good thing for the world and our allies and our nation that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. They could have said that, but they didn't. Well, and it's not entirely their fault. I mean, the leadership of the Democrat Party actually spoke out immediately when this happened. And by leaders, I mean Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Here's the leader in the Senate, Bernie Sanders. He was on his Fight Oligarchy tour when he got word live from the podium that the strike had happened.
This is a statement from Donald Trump, quote, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran," etc. I agree. And I want to tell you something. Not only is this news that I've just heard this second alarming that all of you have just heard, but it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right.
There's your Democrat leader in the Senate, Bernie Sanders. You know, it's interesting. You almost saw the thought process go on behind Bernie Sanders' eyes because he knows that Iran is a terrorist state. He knows that Iran should not be able to get a nuclear weapon. He knows that this had to be done. He's not stupid. He's just a Marxist. But he saw the crowd, the mob, chanting. He saw the tide of the room. And it could have taken courage for him to stand up and say, I understand what you're saying. I understand your anger, but this is not a new war. This is a one-off strike, and it's a good thing that our military did this. I'm sorry if I disagree with you. He could have done that. But he's weak. He's weak, and he played into the mob's hands, and he gave a trite and irresponsible and erroneous answer, because this wasn't the president of the United States leading us into war. This is the president of the United States using our military for one specific strike with a specific objective. And of course, I point you to all of the military strikes that the Obama administration engaged in without getting any congressional authorization. Bernie Sanders, of course, was in the Senate during all of those military strikes too. Okay, so there's your leader in the Senate. How about the leader in the House? Here she is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. The president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran. Wait, it's a disaster for whom exactly? I mean, you listen to the language that they use, and it's clear whose side they're on. Disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations. It's absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. Well, it's not, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, on behalf of the American people, certainly on behalf of the Republican Party, and I'm pretty sure on behalf of the Trump administration, may I be the first one to say, do it. Do it. Oh, please, I beg you, do it. Draft the articles of impeachment. I want to see you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in your smart, very expensive business suit on the floor of the House of Representatives. Make sure all the cameras are on, because I know you like your viral moments. And I want you to tearfully read off the articles of impeachment that you are filing with the House clerk. I want you to detail to the American people how you oppose this action, and that the president of the United States should be removed from office because of it. That'd be a great thing. And please, when you're doing it, wear your "I'm a Democrat" t-shirt or hat or some sort of indicator. I just want to make sure everybody knows exactly what political party you're with when you do that. That'd be terrific. Do it. Do it. So there's your Senate leader. There's your House leader. By the way, right after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez fired off that remark, she appeared to go on a date with a married man, Mahmoud Khalil, wrapped in his keffiyeh, who got released, of course, because a federal judge had to usurp the authority of the executive branch. Mahmoud Khalil, who they keep calling a Columbia student, even though he hasn't been in school for about a year now, the man who led all of the illegal protests and riots and vandalism on behalf of Hamas at Columbia University, where he petitioned that he has a newborn baby that he wants to go take care of, so you can't keep him locked up. He immediately got freed by a judge and went right to the streets of New York City and protested, screaming, "Globalize the Intifada, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," which of course means no more state of Israel. Where's the baby? Where's the newborn baby? Why is he like flirting up and giving flowers to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? It's pretty clear whose side she's on. So eventually, the actual leader of the House, the Democrat leader in the House, the minority leader, eventually got around to delivering a statement. And since AOC and Bernie Sanders over in the Senate had already put out their statements that this was unconstitutional and should be an impeachable offense, Hakeem Jeffries didn't have anywhere to go, really. Donald Trump promised to bring peace to the Middle East. He has failed to deliver on that promise. Funny. Some would say that keeping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is bringing peace to the Middle East. You know who would say that? Other leaders in the Middle East. You think Saudi Arabia is upset about this today? You think the United Arab Emirates or Kuwait or Jordan or Egypt, do you think any of them are upset today because of this? Those countries and the people in those countries all woke up in a safer region the day after this attack. And everybody knows it, even Hakeem Jeffries. But Hakeem, well, he's a Democrat before anything else. And so his statement continues. The risk of war has now dramatically increased, and I pray for the safety of our troops in the region who have been put in harm's way. President Trump misled the country about his intentions, failed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force, and risks American entanglement in a potentially disastrous war in the Middle East. First, the Trump administration bears the heavy burden of explaining to the American people why this military action was undertaken. Second, Congress must be fully and immediately briefed in a classified setting. Third, Donald Trump shoulders complete and total responsibility for any adverse consequences that flow from his unilateral military action. Well, first of all, on that last point, he knows that. We all know that because he's president and you're not. That's the whole point of being president. You have to make decisions like this, and you know that you have to shoulder the responsibility of any adverse effect. Hakeem Jeffries claimed that he was not notified in advance of this, which is customary. Customarily, the Speaker of the House and the minority leader, the majority and minority leader in the Senate are notified before there's a military action. Chuck Schumer was notified, but Hakeem Jeffries claims that he was not. Why? Well, this morning, Caroline Leavitt explained why.
We did make bipartisan calls. Thomas Massie and the Democrats, he should be a Democrat because he's more aligned with them than with the Republican Party. We're given notice. The White House made calls to congressional leadership. They were bipartisan calls. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries couldn't be reached. We tried him before the strike and he didn't pick up the phone, but he was briefed after, as well as Chuck Schumer was briefed prior to the strike. So this notion that CNN ran with at the White House did not give a heads up to Democrats is just completely false. In fact, both Senator Schumer's office and CNN had to retract that story last night because it was a blatant lie. And we showed them the timestamps from those phone calls. But I want to add something to Thomas Massie's false points. The White House was not obligated to call anyone because the president was acting within his legal authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as commander-in-chief of the President of the United States. We gave these calls as a courtesy, and the Democrats are lying about this because they can't talk about the truth of the success of that operation and the success of our United States military and the success of this president and this administration in doing something that past administrations, Democrats too, have only dreamed about.
All right. She's right about all of that, by the way. I said it's customary to notify the leadership in the House and Senate, but they don't have to. They're not obligated to. By the way, everybody talking about how glorious and confidential and top secret this mission was, that people didn't even know about it until it was over. Remember the head fake early in the day on Saturday? It was like, oh, these B-2s are heading to Guam. What's going on there? So they're going to stage from Guam. So everybody's watching the B-2s leave Missouri and go to Guam. Meanwhile, another fleet squadron of B-2s left Missouri as well, but instead of heading west to Guam, they headed east to their target. And not one leak from the Pentagon about this, not one leak from the White House, and not one leak from Capitol Hill. Why? Well, because I think the only Democrat that was told about this and knew about it was Chuck Schumer. Adam Schiff screaming up and down that he didn't know about it. You know, Adam Schiff, a junior, well, that's not true. He's the senior senator now. I think, no, he is the junior senator from California on the Intel Committee in the Senate. He thinks he should have been notified about this. If Adam Schiff had been notified, you know, the real tragedy here, because Adam Schiff wasn't notified, is that Jake Tapper didn't get the leak so he could run with it on CNN while the bombers were still in the air. The reason why you don't brief people is so that it doesn't leak, and that's exactly what happened in this case. Meanwhile, I'm saying Democrat. I want to be honest. There's one Democrat who seems to have his head on straight. It's the one who has, well, forgive me, brain damage of some respects due to a stroke and other debilitating effects of that stroke. John Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania, actually gets it, and he was confronted specifically today about what AOC said, and here's his reply.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the president shouldn't be impeached because he's impulsive. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, of course, no. She knows it. I know it. We all know it. That's not going anywhere. And, you know, he's been impeached twice, and now he's still our president as well now, too. So it's not going anywhere, and I don't think that's helpful. And I think if you throw that term around, that actually diminishes what the severity of what impeachment is really reserved for.
Yeah, that's true. And he's right. Like I said, it's not all Democrats. Some of them get it. Did you notice one thing that he said there that actually is probably the most objectionable statement that a Democrat in Washington, D.C. could make? Did you catch it? Let me play it real fast, because it went by super fast. But it really is probably, of all that entire 30 seconds, it's the thing John Fetterman said that will drive the left most crazy.
I know it. We all know it. That's not going anywhere. And, you know, he's been impeached twice, and now he's still our president as well now, too.
Yeah. He said he's our president. You know, like we're one country together, win or lose, through thick and thin, e pluribus unum. He's our president. Can you imagine Maddow and Chris Hayes and Tapper and George Stephanopoulos and all the other Democrats in the media? Our president? What? Do you think they ever refer to Trump as our president? No. America's president. The MAGA president. Never our president. One last thing. What you just saw, quite possibly, all of those Democrat responses from Hakeem Jeffries to Nancy Pelosi to AOC and Bernie, quite possibly not the craziest thing you've seen all weekend in reaction to the bombing in Iran. This is the LA County Sheriff's Office. The LA County Sheriff's Office, their spokesperson, took to Twitter, X, and put out this statement. Our hearts go out to the victims and families impacted by the recent bombings in Iran. While this tragic event occurred overseas, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is closely monitoring the situation alongside our local, state, and federal partners. At the moment, there are no known threats to Los Angeles County. However, out of an abundance of caution, we're increasing patrol checks in places of worship and other sensitive locations throughout the county. The safety and security of our communities remain our top priority. We will continue to assess and respond to any developments as they arise. If you see something, say something. What the hell is going on with you, LA County Sheriff's Office? If you didn't know, I should inform you. I used to live in Los Angeles. There is one of the largest, if not the largest, Persian community, defected Iranians living in Los Angeles, mostly in the city of Los Angeles and in the county of Los Angeles writ large. I think it's the largest Persian Iranian community outside of Iran. And they're all in Los Angeles because they hate the regime. Otherwise, they'd be over there, right? So who exactly are they speaking for here? Now, that was the original tweet. They deleted it or edited it and put out a different version. Here's the different version. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department closely monitoring the situation overseas alongside our local, state, and federal partners at the moment. So basically, they cut out the whole "our hearts go out to the tragedy," and it's like they took the editorial commentary out of it. But what the hell is happening? This is the problem. Their instinct, whether it's the LA County Sheriff's Office, which is an elected office, and I believe in Democrat hands, or the people who work for their social media, the instinct, the core reflex is to be on the side of America's enemies and speak on their behalf and give thoughts and prayers for them. And listen, I pray for our enemies too. It's a very Christian thing to do. But when you're a public official and we're engaged in a military operation and your initial statement and initial instinct is to describe the events as tragic and that your thoughts and prayers go for the people who were developing the nuclear weapon, who were in the bunker that just got busted, you've sort of lost the plot. And you're a Democrat. All right, that's it for today's Monday extravaganza. Thank you guys for your understanding, by the way. On the Friday show, total power failure here. Huge storms hit the D.C. area, and we were out of power until like Sunday morning, late Saturday night, Sunday morning. It was insane. We got knocked out Thursday night. Anyway, but we're back, and everything's fine now. Thanks for watching today. Do we have some super chats to take care of? We do. Paulina Zismanova. Paulina. That sounds like a ballet dancer's name, doesn't it? Thank you, Paulina. And what a lovely face. $4.99 super chat. Thank you for that. Oh, and here's a comment. Half of my Facebook feed is celebrating, hopeful, and grateful. The other half still thinks Joe Biden was the actual president. You know what? That sounds a little bit like my Facebook feed too, Paulina. It's what makes the world go round. And you just, I hope you're amused by it as I am. Dennis Harmon with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Dennis. That's my dad's name. Most excellent work, Larry and Kevin. A bit of an afterthought there, Kevin, aren't you?
It's okay. That's what I strive for.
Is that right? You are. You're the power behind the throne. Like when I give the statement from the East Room, will you be one of the guys standing behind me, like Vance and Hegseth and Rubio, or are you more like even further in the shadows, pulling my strings?
Yeah, I'm gonna be like Wormtongue.
That's what I figured. Thanks for that. It's a Lord of the Rings reference, nerds. Susan Shellett with a €6 super chat. Susan, I'm coming in 2 months. I'm going to be out there in Amsterdam. I finally figured out why neo-Marxists always support Islamists. They both hate democracy and will do anything to destroy it. They do have a lot of common cause. I think Rush used to talk about that. The overlapping common interests of the... Well, listen, if you look at every Sharia state and Islamo-fascist state, they're very similar to the Marxist regimes of the Cold War, Susan Shellett. It's a great observation. Thank you for that. And thank you for the €6 as well. And an €11, Susan Shellett. Thank you. Please differentiate between Iran, the nation, and its people, and the evil Islamic regime. Thanks on behalf of all Persians who were not dancing in the streets shouting, Allahu Akbar. Susan, thank you for that. Are you Persian as well? Thank you for it. And I think I did mention that earlier in the show, but I would like to reiterate that I've met many Persian Americans and over my lifetime, and they are passionate, intelligent, sophisticated people, and they do hate the regime over there. And we are praying for them, and hopefully they will win back their society and their culture again. Also, if I may say, on a side note, Kevin, not sure you realize this, Persian women, super hot.
No comment.
Are you familiar with this phenomenon?
No comment.
You're such a good boy. Thank you for that. All right. Salt of the Earth, $2 super chat. Happy birthday, Larry. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. It is, in fact, my birthday today. Do you know? Hey, Juan Morales with a $10 super chat. Great job, Larry. Happy birthday. Pray for world peace. I do every day. And thank you, Juan, for the birthday super chat. Do I need to share my birthday super chats with Kevin?
Oh,
don't think I should. Kevin, do you have we acknowledged Kevin's birthday when it happened. I forgot to ask you, do you have a celebrity birthday on your birthday?
Rudy Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani. Wow. Do you know who my celebrity birthday is that I share?
No idea. No clue.
I think I win. Mine's better than yours. I think everyone.
Oh, I do know who it is.
Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Come on. That's pretty good. June 23rd, O'Connor and Thomas. Kevin, is there anything else we should do?
No, sir. Let's wrap.
We will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Thanks for watching. Before you leave, give us a subscribe and give us a like so that we can keep this train rolling down the tracks. In the meantime, we'll see you next time. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.